Yep, it is snowing and sleeting in Michigan, and here we are for a companion video to the last one that I put up, or I guess 2 times ago. These are 3 things that I don't like about my truck. Now, I only did 3 because I actually really like this truck, and it's actually hard to find. But there is 3 specific things that I want to talk about. One of them isn't the fault of the truck. This is a lower trim truck, and I really like having the keypad to get into the vehicle. It's great for an outdoorsman. You can lock your keys in the car, go out hunting, not risk bringing your keys getting wet, falling in a creek, whatever, or losing them. And then you can just come back, put your keypad in, get in the truck, leave. I'm pretty sure you can get the keypad even if you have a keyed ignition like this truck has. It's just that this would be an option that this truck doesn't have. So here's number 2. And number 2, I think, is an oversight. These overloads are long. I can basically put my fist in here. Yep, I can put my fist in here, okay? And, let's see. Got a similar amount out back. When you put load in this truck, you're talking about 4 inches of drop. Or even potentially more. It's really, it might be closer to 5. Before you're even getting onto the overload springs. The truck has, and I really should have measured it before I made the video, let's just call it 2 1/4 inches of rake, okay? Just round number. It doesn't have 4 inches of rake, I can assure you that. It doesn't have 5. This thing squats a lot before you get to the overload spring, and as far as I know, the spring pack that is in the overload spring is the same as a 250. The overload spring is what gives you that extra payload and all that other stuff, and all the tow rating and whatever, you know. Yabba, yabba, yabba. Sure, there's some axle differences. It's not going to make you tow extra. Well, there's an input shaft rating difference. There's going to be a slightly different GVR for the rear axle. Okay, there probably is some on-paper reasons, but the real practical, useful reason why the truck should be able to tow more is brake size, frame strength, and in theory, how much it squats. Because how much it squats, every bit you squat takes weight off the front end and transfers it back here. When you take weight off the front end, the truck's going to get squirrely. And I can attest, truck does not get squirrely when you bottom out onto the overload spring. But if you really wanted to use the overload spring in full, like you're really crunching this thing down, your front end would be in the sky and your bumper would, I mean, you'd be almost dragging mud flaps. I mean, frankly, I had 10K or so of rock in my dump trailer. And the bottom of that hitch, which is as high off the ground as an older truck's trailer hitch receiver is, the bottom of that hitch is, it was only 3 or 4 inches off the ground. I almost needed to turn that hitch and do one of these. Now, granted, the rocks were loaded a little bit too far forward, blah, 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 blah. Truck handled it fine. But I think that this is an oversight. You only really need to have maybe 2 inches of up travel, maybe, before you need to compact those overload springs. That's all you're going to use going down the road. Bring those mounts forward down farther, and let's get on the overload spring sooner so that we can actually use the entire point of having an overload spring and the entire point of having an F350 or the entire point of having an F250 with the high payload package. The lines are being so blurred between all these trucks these days. With the heavy payload, I mean, back in the day, there was that 250 HD that Ford had. That was the 7 lug, and then the Chevy had the 1500 HD, and then the 250 light duty. Or maybe it was the 250 light duty was what Ford had the 7 lug on. Whatever it is, there's been all these years of blurred distinctions between each step up in truck. Let's give a 350 all of its functional capacity, which to me, functional capacity is when the truck gets down to sitting level. If you're squatting it out way past level, and we're talking a lot. This truck, before you hit the overload springs, your headlights are in the sky. You're nowhere near level. I should really take a tape measure to it. It's pretty extreme. This needs to be fixed. It's not, I mean, I don't know if Chevy and Dodge do it, but I can tell you my experience in previous generations, Chevy and Dodge have less axle articulation than this truck does. So good on Ford for bringing us a really nice riding truck. These 23s ride really well. And it very well could be having more up travel. The thing is that you can still have the same amount of up travel and just let those overloads contact a little bit sooner. That would make a huge difference. So the last thing we're going to do for number 3. And obviously, I think that's a bit of an oversight, but most people, if you're towing a camper, you're probably not going to notice it. It's really when you're towing equipment or a dump trailer, things that are really heavy. Things that are really heavy that you can't get around. And sorry, the truck's a mess. I work out of my truck. I'm sorry. So, let's fire the old girl up. Oh, she cranked a little extra. She was cold. Here's what I think is a little bit weird, okay? We went away from tow haul on the end of the stick. Everyone's used to, you know, coming over here and clicking your tow haul button, right? Now it's the manual button. Lets you select manual mode. Whoopsies. Sorry, guys. Manual mode on the shifter. So if you wanted to manually shift your truck, you could lock out your higher gears. Okay? Which is all fine and dandy. Except for, this is so unnecessary for an electronically controlled truck. There's so little requirement. See all the ice accumulation? There's so little requirement to manually shift a modern truck because the ECU is calibrated to shift a trans for you. You're not dealing with a vacuum system to get you into overdrive or converter lockup. You're not dealing with a TV cable. This is all electronic, all based on engine load, RPM, environmental factors, oil temperature. All the things are taken into account. 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive versus 4-low. Yes, you have different shift pattern for everything. We kind of lost what we were used to as drivers, and that's actually not the biggest deal. So let's go down here to our deals. We got normal, we got tow haul, we got eco, and I mean, obviously tow haul gets you in tow haul mode. This is how you get tow haul mode. Not a huge deal, but I think what we need to have, and this isn't a, if you watch this far, this is a recommendation to Ford. We need to see how off-road mode throws you right into 4-high. Now, if I'm not mistaken, oops, go into, let's see what it does in slippery road. What I can assure you is that this isn't turning off all your traction controls. We have the opportunity here with this cool little dial to do something that these trucks have needed since traction control really came into being. And I gotta tell you, it runs so well in normal that I almost never screw with that. And I almost probably should. Just to have a little more, try the eco mode, see how it does. As you can see, it's getting very good fuel economy in eco. I'm sorry, in normal. So it's kind of like, why should I bother taking the extra time to throw it into an extra gear or an extra mode? But I want to show you, or I want to make an argument here. And I hope that if Ford is listening to this, if there's any marketing guys paying attention to the videos people make about their trucks that they sell, I want you to consider this for me. We should have a mode on here, and I know that there's more slots because of what the Expedition has. There needs to be a mode for off-road performance. And when I say that, I mean 0 traction control. Electronic locker can lock at any speed. It already does good on Ford. You can lock it in 2-wheel drive, and for high, and for low, obviously. My previous couple trucks ago was a Power Wagon. You couldn't use the rear locker when you're in 2-wheel drive or for high. Only for low. Now, since I'm pretty sure Dodge has amended that and fixed that, which obviously is good for everybody, because you do need to use a locker in 2-wheel drive. There should be a performance off-road mode that lets you use the locker at all speeds, that turns off traction control in full. I'm talking 0 traction control. And the reason I say that is because traction control gets you stuck. If you know how to drive, you don't need to have traction control. Now, the reason why I believe it's federally mandated to have traction control on all vehicles, and the reason is as the power has increased, especially in a rear-wheel drive platform. If this truck didn't have traction control, and for instance, I'm about to go drive in the sleet, it would be so easy to loop this thing. I mean, you can loop a truck a lot easier than with 430 horsepower. A truck with a lot less than 430 horsepower could get looped out by someone who doesn't know how to drive. This is mandated, as far as I know, as part of new cars. I don't know if it was 2012 or something like that, but at some point, the federal government said you had to have traction control. But with this nice dial, you could have an electronic mode where there's no driver aids besides ABS. ABS is a great function, especially these modern ones work really, really well. Old versions, especially GM, Delphi versions, they were terrible in the snow. They just didn't let you use your brakes, and a lot of people pulled the ABS fuses because they were almost dangerous. I haven't found Ford's ABSs to be as bad, especially on old trucks. I'm a big fan of ABS. But I'm not a big fan of traction control, stability control. Drive your own truck. You should be able to do that. We're band-aiding things, and for all of us who use our trucks, who are capable of driving, it will get you stuck. You will get so stuck so fast with traction control on. Yes, you can hold the traction control off button. It doesn't actually turn traction control off. It loosens up the restrictions a little bit. If you yaw the truck a little bit more than, I don't know what the number is, but if I had to bet you, once the truck gets to about a 15-degree angle of yaw, and their measurement might be in degrees per second, but what I'm getting at is when the truck feels as though it's about 15 degrees off from straight, you're having the ABS lock the tires up to straighten the truck out, and you are you're cutting power, preventing, or usually the transmission will throw upshift so that it's harder for the engine to spin the tires. So it does everything it can to prevent you from spinning out. And for those of us who want to drift on private property, if you want to get a little flossy, you should be able to do that. And it directly limits you, and especially when you're off-roading, or if you're pulling a trailer up a grade that's a little bit loose, you need to get some wheel spin, get your momentum up, get your wheels up, clean out your lugs and everything. Traction control will get you stuck. So I think that we need to have a mode, since we're doing the drive mode thing, and I think it's cool. And if we're go ahead and losing our tow haul mode so it doesn't feel the way it used to, let's make a change that's really going to benefit these trucks, and let's get an off-road performance mode in the drive mode system so that we can have no traction control, no StabiliTrak, and locker engaged at all speeds and at all times. You're not going to suddenly lose control of the truck because you have the locker engaged. Once you get above 12 to 15 miles an hour, it's not going to disrupt your handling on the ground anyway, and you're going to be just as likely to loop it out as if you didn't have the locker in it. So the other point that I'd like to make too is, because it's an electronic mode that the truck now has, it should be able to be programmed to show up in the vehicle's EDR report after a collision happens. So that would cover Ford's butt. If the driver had it in off-road performance mode, they could have simply a column in their EDR printout that says what drive mode, and I have actually seen EDRs that show what drive mode the vehicle is in, and usually they say normal because on average people who are performance drivers don't crash cars. It's usually just the average Joes. Could easily have a drive mode tab or a drive mode column in the pre-crash data of an EDR report, and it could say the driver was in whatever, and we'd see the wheel speed being higher for their two rear wheels. We would see, you could even have a portion where StabiliTrak would StabiliTrak have been commanded, yes or no. That would be more than enough to prevent the liability to Ford, so that we could have a vehicle that didn't suck off-road. So I highly recommend that Ford considers that. Those are really my only 3 gripes with this truck. I love every single bit of it. For a gas truck, and you can't go compare a gas truck to a diesel truck. A diesel truck is capable of things that a gas truck simply isn't. The GVWR is higher. It is a more of a heavy duty engine. They are built to run longer in more hospitable situations. They are incomparable between the two. Diesel engines are wonderful. Gas engines also have a use. I really like, in my application, having the gas engine. I wouldn't recommend that this be someone's only truck if they're towing heavy, especially over long distance of time. But for me, this works out quite well, and it makes room for me to have a different diesel truck as more of a primary tow rig. This is more of a primary, literally grocery getter. But as you guys have seen, my grocery getter is still going to do work. And go hunting, and take dogs for walks, and do all the good things that... My better half got a really nice buck this year, and it was really awesome. I purposely got this truck with a middle seat, and the middle seat folds up so that you can sit in the middle. And my daughter drove out with me to go recover the deer, and she was riding in the middle of the middle seat through the field to go get the deer with me. And that made buying this truck so worth it, I can't even tell you. So to a lot of us, buying a truck is more than just the face value of what the truck is. It's about the memories we make in the truck and what we accomplish along the way. And for a lot of us is making money with the truck. So for me, this works out really well. I think it's a great engine as long as it holds up and as long as I don't blow up the trans. I'm going to be a happy camper because I really like how simple this truck is. So yeah, I really only have 3 gripes. Thank you guys for sticking around for potentially 15 minutes. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, hit subscribe, and comment down below if you agree with my thoughts. Ford, if any of you guys watch this, I would appreciate if you took a gander into giving us an off-road mode that really made the truck behave like an old school truck, because we have a very powerful engine and a very capable truck, and we really don't need to have traction control, because the same people who were enjoying really powerful, really capable trucks before are buying these, and we want to have a truck that isn't handicapped by traction control. So everyone have a great day. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving too, because this is going to hit right after Thanksgiving. See y'all. Take care.